So, if you've seen my update video, you'll know that I've been away for a while due to moving house. In that time, I've read about 3 Wheel of Time books, or audiobooks rather, yet I haven't had the time to make any new videos for each book. I thought for a while that I'd just have to upload a backlog of reviews. This, in fact, got me thinking on my review process and how I approach books in general. I enjoy analysing books and giving my detailed thoughts on the books I read. But I'm not a huge fan of keeping everything spoiler free, and I also have a lot more fun giving my unscripted, unfiltered thoughts on books that I've read. So going forward, unless there's a good reason not to, all my reviews will just be spoiler filled discussions. Maybe if it's the first book in a series I'll do a spoiler free review, but I'll definitely be doing unscripted and unfiltered spoiler discussions on my thoughts of any subsequent books in a series. If there's demand for more spoiler-free reviews, then I'll reconsider, but from past experience you guys seem to enjoy spoiler-filled discussions more. Anyway, today we'll be discussing 3 different Wheel of Time books: The Shadow Rising, The Fires of Heaven, and The Lord of Chaos. This will be all off the cuff and my immediate thoughts, so I hope you all enjoy. But with all of that said, let's jump right in with the first section of the video, The Shadow Rising. Let's start with Perrin and Fael. Now, Perrin and Fael have what seems to be a very toxic relationship. I don't even want to say toxic. Like, Fael thinks she can trample all over Perrin, and Perrin, poor guy. Perrin he just wants peace, so he kind of just lets her do that, which is obviously not the thing he should be doing. I'm not a huge fan of the relationship, but as the story progressed and after Perrin realized that his family was dead and that Emmonsfield needed saving, it kind of seems like Fael started listening a bit more and actually, working with him as a partner instead of somebody who's fighting against him. Though, if this is supposed to be his long-term love interest, I can understand how, at the beginning stages here, there's a bit of turbulence. I just hope it kind of works out and that there's no further issues. But I have heard that this is a relationship that the fandom in general doesn't like, so we'll have to see. Anyway, so other than their relationship, they went to the Two Rivers because it was under siege by White Cloaks. They get there and they find out that it's also under siege by Trollocs and Myrddraal. So basically what Perrin then does is he becomes an absolute badass, takes over the whole Two Rivers as its kind of like leader, in a way, its general, and he essentially leads the defense of Emmonsfield. Well, I would say it's of the Two Rivers, because it does seem like they got a lot of people from farms in the surrounding area. But yeah, essentially they defended Emmonsfield from an attack of the Shadow Spawn. The White Cloaks were also there, and oh my god, I really do not like the White Cloaks. They're so holier than thou, they are so full of themselves that only they know what's right, and if you dare go against them, then you are evil. And just the arrogance of the White Cloaks, just the fact that they are so arrogant. Anyway, I'm gonna go on a rant if I don't stop myself, so yeah. Also, with Perrin, there was Slayer, Lord Luke and Slayer that was in the Wolf Dream, clearly being the same person. I immediately suspected Lord Luke when he was just randomly there. Supposedly a hunter for the horn, but he's just hanging around the villages. Like, if you wanted to make the excuse of checking the Mountain of Mists, then okay, sure, maybe. But if you're constantly amongst the villagers, then that's kind of, sus. And also, Perrin clearly didn't trust him, so you as the reader obviously wouldn't either. Then it gets revealed that he's Slayer, and, well, I kind of saw that coming. Now, I do wonder, though, he was kind of described having... Okay, so I don't want to touch on Rand's story yet, but they do mention that Rand had a... He basically came from a mother that was not Aiel, but integrated into the Aiel, and a father that was a clan chief, right? The mother left behind a husband and child in her previous kingdom, which I now forget. I think it was maybe Carrion, or maybe it was... doesn't matter. Point is, she left behind a husband and child. Now, Lord Luke is described as having hair the same color as Rand, or almost as Rand's. I noticed Perrin thinking about that, right? Does this Lord Luke have something to do with Rand? I'm just thinking it's so random, right? Having Slayer suddenly come into the story, having no ties to the cast. I mean, it could very well be random, and I might just be theorizing out of my ass here, but that's just the way I think the story's going. I could be completely wrong. I guess we'll have to see. Now, let's move on to Egwene and dreamwalking. So Egwene figures out that she's a dreamwalker. During one of her escapades into Teleron Riad, or the world of dreams, she essentially bumps in, or I guess you could say bumps into a wise one dreamwalker, who instantly realizes that this is not a normal person who's dreamed themselves into the world of dreams. This is somebody who's actually actively exploring it. So because of this, Egwene joins Rand and goes to the Aiel Waste to learn dreamwalking from the wise ones. And Nynaeve and Elaine do their own thing. I think it's really cool. Like, I really like the whole concept of the dream world and how it kind of relates to the magic system as a whole. I'm currently going through the next book in the series. That would be The Fires of Heaven. And I can already see that this dream world has a lot more to do with the larger magic system and the larger story than I initially thought. So seeing Egwene go through that and learning all these things about the dream world and how to use it, how to utilize it, was really interesting. She doesn't have a huge role in the story after she joins the Wise Ones. She's kind of, a lot of her chapters kind of gets, I don't want to say skipped. We see a lot less of her chapters. So basically, we don't get a lot of insight into her actual training, but we do get some insight into her, interacting with the other characters. Now, Nynaeve and Elaine are in Tanchico, or that's where they go in order to obviously find out what is in the city that apparently has some danger for Rand. They go there, they find out that there's this whole basically civil war that's brewing under the surface because of all the refugees coming in and the political tensions, things like that. They eventually find out that the Black Aja is controlling the Panok of Tanchico. They go through some shenanigans, they release the Panok, and there is obviously a battle. Now, the point I was trying to get to here with Nynaeve and Elaine, right? Their whole story up to this point was kind of like a side story, and it got interesting near the end, but it was nothing major for me. It wasn't really a draw. Then Nynaeve fought against a Forsaken. I did not see this coming. I did not foresee that anyone except Rand would actually face off against the Forsaken. I kind of just figured that he would eventually fight all of them on his own. That would be like his enemies up until he fights the Dark Lord at the end, right? And apparently, no. I was completely wrong. So, Nynaeve fights Mogadine, and she freaking captures her. Well, she cuts her off from the source, not stilling, but she cuts her off, shields her, and traps her in air, and then looks away for a bit while she fights another Black Sister, and oh, now Mogadine is gone. But, I mean, she's Forsaken, and she has allies, so I can see that happening. It's just so interesting to me that Nynaeve is on par with one of the Forsaken. So that tells me, well, number one, we know that Nynaeve is super strong. She just has an issue because she needs anger to actually work her magic. But what it does tell me is that Nynaeve being on par with a Forsaken either means that Mogadine specifically is a weak Forsaken, or Nynaeve is stupidly strong. So I guess we're going to have to see. I guess I'm leaning towards Nynaeve just being stupidly strong, and maybe a bit of the Forsaken not being as strong as I thought. But at the same time, it kind of feels a bit cheap. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it feels a little bit cheap if Nynaeve is strong enough to attack a Forsaken and win the fight. It was like really on edge. She almost didn't make it. I get it, but she's not that well trained in the power, yet she's strong enough to stand her own. It's like, it just happens that the main party from this one little remote village happens to be all either super powerful or super special. That kind of still rankles me, but I get it. It's kind of written into the narrative, the pattern is a thing, the wheel weaves as the wheel whirls. So you're gonna get things like that. I mean, Robert Jordan basically wrote plot armor into the narrative. So I can understand. It's just I gotta get over my bias around it anyway. Alright, so next I want to go over to Matt and the Terangrial, the doorways that he goes through to, number one, first find out he needs to go to Roydian, and then number two, goes to Roydian and goes through the next doorway where he gets his spear sword thing, his medallion that prevents him from being channeled on, and I guess he gets out of Tel'aran'rhiod. But what I find really interesting about Matt, most interesting, is the whole fortune luck thing that he's got going, number one. But number two, he's getting the memories from long dead soldiers and generals kind of imported into his mind. So he basically, like, will he eventually just stop being Matt? Will he just be an amalgamation of different characters from different lifetimes? Or is it just going to be like these isolated memories and this isolated bits of knowledge that allows him to become a war leader for, I assume, Rand one day, right? So that I find super interesting. Then you have his clear fighting ability. I mean, he's really good with a quarterstaff, and now he's got a quarterstaff with a blade. So I'm really interested to see where Matt is going. You know, the trickster, roguish gambler who also becomes a war general. I don't know. It's a really interesting combination, but I'm definitely excited to see more. And next we get over to the third of the Emond's Field 3, and that is Rand. Rand becomes he who comes with the dawn. He becomes the chosen one of the Aiel, and basically they become the people of the dragon as per the Corinthian cycle. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but essentially he now undergoes the things he needed to get these people behind him, right? Also, just want to say Avienda is with him and looking after him for Elaine, and she's super mean, and oh my god, what a bitch. But I kind of know due to the fandom that she becomes an eventual love interest, so that's a thing, because every girl goes after him, I guess. Anyway, back to the important parts. So Rand goes through Roydian, goes through a process which I will touch on in a moment because oh my god, that was so awesome. Gets out of the city with dragon tattoos on his arms, then interacts with this absolute ass of an Aiel called Couladin, who's like, oh no, you can't be he who comes with the dawn because you're an outlander, you're a outsider, a wetlander as they call it. And I'm just like, do you know your own prophecies, or are you just being willfully ignorant? Because it says he will be of the blood but not raised by the blood, or not something like that. Like, it clearly says that he's going to be Aiel descent but not necessarily raised as an Aielman. Anyway, so they race to this meeting place of the chiefs to prove that well, Rand is the chosen one, I guess. Chosen one. And then Couladin comes and he's also got the tattoos. And I was just like, what? How? And it gets explained. So basically, it seems that Lanfear was part of the merchant train. And also Asmodean was there as well. He was the bard. Then there's a chase. Like, Lanfear explains this to Rand. He goes to Ruidean with a doorway. Chases down Asmodean. They have a massive fight. And he luckily just about defeats Asmodean. Lanfear goes there and she's like, oh, as a gift to you, I will give you him as a teacher. I've sealed off his power. He has a trickle that he can use. You now have a teacher. So, wow. Okay, I actually didn't foresee that Rand would get a teacher. I thought he was going to kind of just figure out his powers the old-fashioned way, just trial and error. But he's basically getting a teacher now. So that's really cool. And from, like I said, I've started with the next book, so from what I can see, it looks like it's going well. I mean, he is learning, so that's really interesting, and I really enjoyed that. Anyway, now I want to get to the part in Roydian, right? This part, oh my god, guys, this part, the history of the Aiel, the history, the flashbacks through time to see how the Aiel became what they became, and where they were before, seeing the world during the Age of Legends. I was so blown away. Just the way that Jordan writes it, right? The execution of delivering this crucial world building information, but in a way where you as the reader get to experience it and see it and understand a lot better. Like if a character just read from a textbook, or if another character just gives them the explanation through, just telling them, or if it's conveyed in some other way, you lose a lot. But having these magical flashbacks through Rand's genealogical line, it's actually so cool. It's so interesting. You get to see basically the gigantic, I don't know, meteor or ball or orb or something that kind of drove the hole into the Dark One's prison, which would basically released him. You also get to see this utopian society that they apparently lived under. Then you get to see the breaking and basically how shit was going down and people could barely survive. And then you also get to see how the Aiel went from being essentially the Tinkers, following the way of the leaf. Then they dropped their oaths because some of them, very logically, understood that you cannot survive in a world if you refuse to enact violence. Sometimes it's necessary. So they broke away and they became the Aiel. And that was just so interesting. I really enjoyed it. And then you have the Aiel culture as well, so focused on oaths and, honor and things like that. I really enjoyed it. And the structure still kind of confuses me a little, like the septs and I get the clans and I get the societies. I don't know what the septs are 100%. I don't know, but it's still really cool and really interesting. Like Robert Jordan, I've heard that he does culture well, and yeah, he does culture so well. I can see it now, and I really enjoyed this book because of that. And now let's move on to The Fires of Heaven. So, for The Fires of Heaven, I read it right after I finished The Shadow Rising, and I want to kind of jump into Rand's discussion first here. So, Rand's story was about leading the Aiel and conquering essentially Carrion and I guess later on Andor, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, his primary arc here was just establishing him more as a ruler and as a leader. There was a battle in Carrion, or for Carrion, with the Shadow Aiel, and I really enjoyed it, though it was a bit quick and disjointed for me. My issue, or not issue, but what really struck me from that battle was just how much of a mental break Rand seemed to have during that battle. And it really kind of showed just how tired, mentally fatigued Rand has become. And you can actually see that throughout the rest of the book. Rand is becoming a very hard man, a very strong and tough man, but he is losing that childlike quality, that childlike wonder, that, the farm boy that he used to be. He's losing the shepherd and becoming the dragon. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'll leave up to you, but it is something that I've noticed. And of course, we can't mention Rand without mentioning the fact that he slept with Aviendha, which is like the first, I assume there's going to be more, but like the first sexual encounter of the series. Not counting Perrin and Fael, of course, I mean for Rand specifically. And, well, look, I didn't expect Jordan to go there, and I don't mind sex in my books, it just kind of came out of left field. I honestly thought there'd be more progression, but they just kind of went into it. So, yeah, Aviendha is definitely the love interest, and now it's Elaine and Min as well, so that's a whole thing. But I guess I can kind of deal with it. It's just a bit weird that you have Elaine, who's so besotted with him, then you have Min, who really likes him, but kind of tries to play it off, and then you have Aviendha, who really likes him, but tries to completely push him aside, yet she's the one who sleeps with him first. I don't know, bit weird, but I guess that's just how it plays out. Next, I want to move on to Matt. Now, Matt is becoming a war general for sure. I mean, the battle of, I don't even know, does it have a name? The Battle of Carrion, the battle against the Shadow, whatever it's called, that one in this book, we all know what you're talking about. That battle was actually pretty interesting. Like, Matt was trying to escape and trying to, just not be around Rand anymore. He wanted to go find some taverns, just live his own life, and I actually would not have minded if he got away and we get to see his journey through the lands. But it didn't play out that way, so it's just like the pull, I assume, of Rand as a Targaryen is just so strong that he just couldn't get away, and also he, being a Targaryen himself, kind of just interlocked with each other. he ends up fighting in the battle and becoming a war hero in a way, like leading the forces properly and getting a band of soldiers following him, which is really cool. And, you know, with all the generals and old war leaders' memories being stuck in his head, I'm really enjoying where Matt is going. I'm really excited to see where he goes next. Now, let's move on to Nynaeve and Elaine. Nynaeve and Elaine have a pretty interesting story, you know. They basically, on their way back to the White Tower, then they find out that, oh, okay, the White Tower is kind of destroyed and fractured right now. Then they're like, okay, fine, we can't go to the White Tower, where do we go? And through some digging and hunting, they do find out where they need to go, but that's not really important. What I want to focus on here is, number one, they hunt down Moghedien. Also, I know I said Moghedien in the previous section for Shadow Rising. That is because I recorded that section right after finishing the book, and the voice actors said Moghedien, and then right after, in this one, they say Moghedien, so I don't even know what's right. I'm saying Moghedien now. I think it sounds better than Moghedien, so I'm saying Moghedien, but I'm like, can they not just kind of... it's really annoying. Like, if it's a fantasy word, pick a pronunciation, stick to it, you know what I mean? Anyway, so they hunt down Moghedien in the World of Dreams. They're trying to find out where she is, while at the same time trying to obviously get to the safe spot for them, which is Saladar. Now, eventually, Birgitte, the ancient hero, is helping them, and she finds where Moghedien is and takes Nynaeve there. Nynaeve then, I don't know if she gets seen or something, but when they return, Moghedien comes with, and kind of somehow, and don't even ask me how, shoves Birgitte out of the World of Dreams into the physical world, which is like, what? So that happened. Then Birgitte, I guess, is just with them, and she becomes Elaine's warder, which is kind of really weird. And at the end of the day, you know, with Nynaeve and Elaine, the end of their story, they get to Saladar with Birgitte, I guess. And then Nynaeve goes into the World of Dreams, goes to Camelin, and captures Moghedien, or rather she captures Moghedien in Saladar, and then they go to Camelin to help Rand. But point is, she creates the same tool that the Shan were using to control those who could channel, and she links it to Moghedien's neck, and now Moghedien is just under her control. I'm like, what? Like, I was surprised she could go toe-to-toe with Moghedien in a magical battle in the previous book. Now she's capturing Moghedien and actually, like, controlling her? I'm like, what? What kind of reversal of power is this? I went from thinking Nynaeve is pretty strong, but probably not much stronger than, like, full Aes Sedai, maybe she's got a lot of potential, to going from that to she takes down one of the Forsaken, and that Forsaken only escapes due to some kind of twist of fate or luck. Then she captures that Forsaken. I'm like, what? Okay, Nynaeve, badass. Nynaeve is a badass. Anyway, there wasn't really much Egwene in this book. She was there for a bit, and she helped some of the characters, but she didn't really have an arc in this book. She just spent most of her time studying under the Wise Ones. Perrin, as well, did not appear in this book at all, like, not even a bit. So that was actually quite, you know, interesting and strange to me, because I was looking forward to more Perrin, but I didn't really miss him in this book. So it's like Robert Jordan knew that the reader would need more time to digest what was going on with these characters, and that Perrin needed to cool down. So I kind of like that, and I hope that, you know, throughout the series there's going to be some times where some characters just go off for a while, because it kind of allows Robert Jordan as an author to have things happen to them that important, but not to the point that we have to see every single minute of it. So I do appreciate that. And then we have Swan, Sanche, and Min. In the previous chronicles, Aes Sedai, I forget her name every time. Anyway, you have them on their way to Saladar, first they find out they have to go to Saladar, then they head towards Saladar, but not before pissing off Gareth Bryn, who's no longer the Lord Captain Commander of Morghase's army. So, he's been fired? I don't know. It seems like some drama went down. He basically is now just overseeing his lordly lands. They create some commotion. He sentences them to work off their debt. They then run away. And now he's chasing after them. Now, I get it. Any, like, happenstance or coincidence or like, oh, that sure is convenient moment in these books can be ascribed to the pattern and the wheel weaving as it wills. I don't know. It just kind of still rubs me the wrong way. Like, I do like that the people that follow Gareth Bryn, like some of the soldiers, say, are we really going all this way just for some people who burned down a barn? So I like that they're kind of pointing it out, kind of hanging a lantern on it, but at the same time, like, it's still kind of frustrating. Anyway, so he chases them down and finds Saladar with them. There's a whole meeting with the Aes Sedai at the end, and they agree to let Swan stay there and like kind of be their eyes and ears, with Gareth Bryn leading their armies, which is a weird twist, but I'm liking where this is going, so I'm not going to complain. Now, the next big thing that happens in this book is that Moraine, quote unquote, dies. And I'm going to say it right up, I don't buy it. Sorry, I just don't buy it. I don't buy that she and Lanfear go into that doorway portal and then everyone just assumes they did. Like, okay, hold up. Number one, Rand, you've been in that doorway, right? You've been in there. You know what happens when you go inside. It's a different world. So you see them go in. And then you just think that they're dead? Why? Like, what makes you think that they're dead? Well, why would you immediately assume that they are dead? There's absolutely no reason to. You've been in there. And me, myself, I don't believe that she's dead. I think she's probably trying to escape with Lanfear or something, but there's absolutely no reason to think that she's dead. Now, she is in a completely different realm, and Lan did say he felt their connection being severed. So, in a sense, it is almost like she died in that sense, like her connection with her warder was cut. But I don't think she's dead. I think she's making a comeback. And it's not just for, sense-making reasons, but also, like, just narrative reasons. Like, number one, having her die that way, whilst good, like, taking down a Forsaken, doing it in that way, where it was kind of just like, I don't know, it wasn't really a final battle, there was no grandness to it, there was no resolution to any character arc, it was just done. That would feel very cheap. And killing Lanfear like that, after she's been kind of messing with Rand for so long, I don't know, if Rand isn't the one to kill Lanfear and by so doing getting over his issue with killing women, I'm going to feel cheated. I'm going to be honest, I'll feel cheated. So I highly doubt that she's dead. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see them come back. Probably not in the next book, but definitely in later books, maybe later in the series. And then we have the fight with Ravine in Camelin, or at least the Dreamworld version of Camelin with Rand. And that was a pretty interesting fight. Not much happened with the fight specifically, it was more just running and chasing. But what I really liked was Rand used Balefire that was so strong that it undid the deaths that Ravine caused. He obviously put wards up, and when they came in there, everyone except Rand basically died. But Balefire undid that, right? And it kind of gives the reader a good idea of why Balefire was kind of outlawed. Just think about it, right? Like, imagine you kill a Forsaken. Forsaken is dead. Yes, finally, the world is a slightly better place because this evil person is dead. If one person uses Balefire on you strong enough, the Forsaken will come back to life. And that's just like one way of using it, It's like, it really sinks it into you just how much Balefire would actually affect the timeline of everything. So I really like that. Also, I just have to say as well, I really liked Asmodean, and I don't see why he had to die at the end of this. Like, okay, I can see why narratively, and I can see why in terms of it just makes sense if you know that there's someone who could give sensitive information to the dragon, you're gonna send someone to try and kill him, and I don't know who did it yet. However, poor Asmodean, man, like, I liked him. I liked the kind of, like, friendship he and Rand were building. I like that, he seemed like a nice guy. Yeah, he was a weasel, and yeah, he was kind of, I don't know, he was just kind of a weasel, is the best way I can describe it, but still, it kind of looked like he was coming around to really connecting with Rand on some way, and they were sharing confidences, not much, but to the point where Asmodean could see a side of Rand that no one else could, because Asmodean had to be hidden from everyone, and now he's gone. So I'm like, oh, poor Asmodean. It's kind of sad. Anyway, so just talking about the book in general, I really like the larger role of politics in this book. Like, you're getting a better idea of the political climate of the world as well. Now, there wasn't a lot of world building that was explained, but that's fine because we got so much elsewhere. We got so much information in terms of politics and characters and magic and this and that and this and that, that adding more world building probably would have just caused more issues than it was worth. So I'm actually pretty glad that Robert Jordan laid it low with the world building on this one. We did get some more explanation on the magic and the weaves and how they exactly use the weaves, and they can kind of tie them off and things like that, so I do enjoy that, but not too much. There was less revealed about the World of Dreams in this one as well, but it did still play a role in the end, and you do still learn a bit more about it, but you never learn like how Birgitte was somehow able to be removed from it and put into the physical world and things like that, so I do hope we get an answer there, but you don't really get a proper explanation on that front. And with all of that being said, let's move on to the third book of today's discussion, and that is The Lord of Chaos. So, first thing about The Lord of Chaos that struck me is that it had a really long prologue, with characters that seem to have been reborn, and they're following this Myrddraal that seems to have more authority over them than Forsaken, and I don't know, I'm kind of confused about what's going on, but I'm really intrigued. Something's going on there, and I do like that the Shadow and, you know, the Forsaken and whatever is going on with them, it seems like it's coming more to the forefront. You're understanding a bit more about their dynamic and their relationship with the Dark Lord and exactly what's going on, and this term Nameless is coming up, but I'm not sure what it is, but apparently it's important to them. So I'm really enjoying that, but I'm still so confused. Like I said, I am intrigued and I'm interested and I can't wait to see more, but I'm so confused. Anyway, let's move on to Perrin. So Perrin appears only briefly in this book, and he appears to basically help Rand because Rand is dealing with some issues. He does face down his father-in-law for the first time, which that was a pretty interesting experience. Now, speaking of that, Fail and her whole jealous thing. Look, I get it, they're married, and I guess we're not going to get rid of her. So it seems like she's going to be his love interest for the foreseeable future, but can we not just, like, get rid of her somehow? Like, I don't know. The whole jealous Fail thing is getting really old. The whole Fail thing in general is just getting really old. I'm kind of over her. She's unnecessarily catty. She's unnecessarily jealous. She doesn't let Perrin explain anything. She's willfully, like, belligerent, or rather, like, she can see that Perrin is trying desperately not to upset her, to show that he's got only eyes for her, to basically, he's being the good boy here. And she, like, either she's an idiot or she's blind, because she either sees this and just ignores it, or she doesn't realize it. One of the two. Either she's an idiot or she's blind, and either way, I don't like her. So I'm getting tired of her. I really hope there's some redemption there, because if this is going to be like something you have to deal with for the rest of the series, it's going to be something that really grinds my gears. What I did enjoy, though, was that Perrin felt a lot more mature this time around. You know, like, he's married now, and he's gone through battles. He's basically leading the two rivers as their elected lord, even though he doesn't want it, they kind of want it. So, yeah, he's gotten a lot more mature. And when Perrin and Rand met up again after a while, I don't know, I really liked it. It was like this moment between two old friends who, both of who have gone through their own deal of shit in life, and both of who have had to deal with a lot of stuff that two ordinary farmers from a small backwater village really shouldn't be facing. But, you know, I mean, that's just life, and they're seeing each other again, and Perrin sees Rand, and Rand is this man, this changed man who's like incredibly, I don't want to say paranoid, but he's always on his feet, always moving, because he has to. He can't fall behind. He has to stay one step ahead, but we'll get to Rand in a moment, because I do have quite a bit to say about him. The point is, you get this meeting, and you get this glimmer of what they were like when they were younger, you know, these two boys. But then they have to fall back to basically their mature ways now, and it's kind of sad in a way. I really do enjoy this nuance that Robert Jordan has included here, and you can tell it a lot with Perrin. Like, he's definitely become a lot more mature from, like, the first time we saw him. Anyway, let's move on to number 2 of the group, and that is Matt. Now, Matt kind of also takes on a more mature role. He takes on a fatherly role with the little boy Oliver, who he kind of seems to be, I don't know, I don't want to say mentoring. Oliver kind of just seems to be stuck to him. He's not like showing him or teaching him anything. But I think, for me, it kind of seems like Oliver is a way for Matt to remember the days when he was young and innocent too. He's no longer the carefree little scoundrel from the Two Rivers. He's, number one, he's a general now, a war general. Number two, he's got the memories of long dead people in his head. He's got some kind of quirk of luck. He's extremely skilled at fighting with that spear of his. He can't be channeled on thanks to the medallion, whatever, that he got from that weird place in the Archers. So a lot has happened to Matt, but he takes on this fatherly role with Oliver, and I think it's really endearing. I really like it. But yeah, so he's a general now, like full-on general. He was trying to escape during the fight in the previous book, and after winning that fight, he's still like, okay, cool, no, I'll just be the general now. I think there were lines that indicated that, you know, he kind of just gave up. It's pointless trying to get away because Rand is such a strong Taviran, he just gets pulled back all the time. But, I don't know. I guess he's just going to be a permanent general now for Rand, or I don't know if he's still going to have his own adventures, because I kind of still hope that he has his own adventures. So yes, he is still much more mature, but he's still kind of himself, in a way. He's still Matt, just a more mature and battle-hardened Matt. He also eventually joins Nynaeve and Elaine when they go to, and I can't remember the place now, but they go to a city to find this bowl, Terangrial or something, and it's nice to see him, you know, link up again with Nynaeve and, I guess not Egwene, but with Nynaeve at least. So yeah, I'm enjoying Matt. Speaking of Egwene, she becomes the Amelin seat. So that happened. Now, don't get me wrong, I kind of saw it coming. I think it was kind of obvious from the first book. Egwene was constantly told, you could even be the Amelin seat one day. And because it was told so many times, by like the third book, I was like, okay, yeah, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's kind of obvious. They keep bringing it up. I mean, they brought it up in like one of the first 2 or 3 chapters from the first book. I remember Moraine saying that to her. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not that surprised that she becomes it. My problem is that it felt so cheap. Like, she never got to be a full Aes Sedai. They instantly make her Amelin seat, clearly just so they have someone that they can manipulate and use that's also not really linked to the tower in any way. So I understand all the practical reasons for them making her the Amelin seat. It just kind of feels unearned. But that can be remedied if she kind of twists this thing basically on them. So they think, oh no, they're going to use her. Instead, she kind of twists it, which she seems to be doing now, twisting it to basically where she's using them, even though they're not even realizing it. So if that can be pulled off well, if that gets pulled off well, it can be redeemed. But for now, I'm still kind of miffed about the way it was done. Same with Elaine and Nynaeve's becoming Aes Sedai, but less so, I guess. Egwene also connects up with Gawain in Carrion, and they have the whole lovey-dovey thing, so it seems like that's going to be her primary love interest. Gawain's whole obsession with her is a bit, not obsession, but the way he approaches her, it reads very unrealistically, and like it kind of reads like the cliched way you think a knight would approach a fair lady. I don't know if that's intentional. Is that just the way that, you know, Gawain is, thanks to being a sheltered kid from a palace? I don't know. Point is, looks like she's got a relationship or romantic interest as well, so that's nice. Also, I do think that with her spending so much time with the wise ones, she's become a lot harder and stronger, which I like, which kind of plays into her, you know, manipulating the Aes Sedai as the Amelin seat, because even though they're kind of trying to manipulate her, she's spent time amongst the wise ones. She doesn't take no crap from no one, so I do enjoy that. So I'm hopeful. I'm just a bit worried because it felt a bit rushed to me. Anyway, let's move on to Nynaeve. So she's struggling with her block still, where it seems she still needs to be angry to channel. I'm not sure if it was resolved by the end of the book. I don't think it was clear. I think she still has the block, or does she not? I honestly, I don't think it was made clear to me. I don't know if I maybe skipped a line, or if generally she still has that block. But yes, she's still struggling with that. She has become a lot less annoying and aggravating than she was. Not that she was ever really that bad, but it did get a bit iffy with the previous book, but she's definitely much better now. So I do appreciate that. And of course, the fact that, you know, she bloody well subjugates Morgideon, which is kind of impressive. That's an understatement, but yeah, it's really cool. I don't know, maybe the way the book spoke about the Forsaken made them really hyped up in my mind, but by the amount of times they get defeated, maybe I shouldn't be so impressed. I don't know. Anyway, so moving on to Elaine, she becomes a strong, obviously, user of the One Power, and she creates Angreal after learning what they do from Mogideon. She has Birgitta as her warden now, which is kind of, bucking the custom, but obviously looks like they're bucking all kinds of customs now. And we also have Tom and Julian around, but they're not very active in this book. So that's all the extra cast out of the way. I want to get to Rand now. So Rand juggles a lot of responsibilities in this book. So on one hand, you have Carrion, which he needs to obviously maintain. They've got their, game of houses. He's opening the school there and things like that. So he's still trying to maintain some kind of stability in that area. Then you've got Andor, which he's also still trying to maintain some stability on, but he's only really controlling the main city. Not like he, led a military campaign over the whole land. Then you also have Tyr, where he kind of left them a reminder that he's still in charge and he will be back, but at the same time, no one's there to kind of make sure that everything's going well, so I'm kind of foreseeing some issues arising from there with a vacuum in that power, unless that doesn't happen, but it seems like it should. Anyway, so he's got these three, territories he needs to be juggling, right? On top of that, he's got the Aiel and all of their, inner politics with, the Ji'ito and the Guy Shine and the Shido that are kind of rebelling against their custom, and he has to kind of deal with the Aiel who see him as, the Kara Khan, the chief of chiefs, but he's kind of like a first equal amongst equals, so it's not like he can really tell them what to do. So he's dealing with that. Then he's also dealing with all the Forsaken that kind of want his blood. Not all of them are actively going for it, but there are quite a few, and there's one or two that seems to be really gunning for him at the moment. Then he has his little black tower, as it's being called, with his, male, channelers, I guess you can call them. They had a name, which I forget now. But he's got that he's also running and trying to keep away from people, where it's still kind of safe, but people do know about it, about his amnesty and everything like that. Speaking of which, I really, really don't trust Mazrim Time. I have a feeling... Okay, so this is just a theory, and I'm probably way off. Also, just by the way, I know earlier in this video, in the first section, I speculated on Lord Luke being the brother or something of Rand, because of what they said about his heritage. Turns out I was right. Wrong about him being a brother. Looks like he was more an uncle, but still, I was right. And I made that prediction before getting to this book, so I feel good about myself. Anyway, so you have Mazrim Time, right? The previous Dragon Reborn, or false dragon, who comes to help Rand. But I really don't like his attitude. He's got this, this not cocky, but arrogant attitude. And you'd think that being a man who could channel, right? And who basically has been proven, oh, you're not really the dragon, here's the real dragon. You'd think he'd have some kind of, or at least a bit of humility, but no, he's very arrogant, and every time he comes up, you get Luz Theron in Rand's head, going crazy. I have a feeling, and I might be wrong, but I have a feeling that maybe Mazrim Time is a Forsaken in disguise, because it almost seems like Luz Theron recognizes him, or at least there's some kind of thing to do with the shadow. So if he's not the Forsaken, he's at the very least some evil guy. So I'm very suspicious of Mazrim Time. But we shall see how that plays out. I'm not sure if I'm right. I don't trust, okay? I don't trust. Speaking of Luz Theron in Rand's head, that's another thing he's got to be dealing with. Literally Luz Theron. Not even just a voice that sounds like his voice or whatever. No, he says things that only Luz Theron would know. He tells Rand how to do things that only Luz Theron would know. At the end, near their final battle, they actually communicate, back and forth for a while to undo the shield on Rand that's shielding him from the power. So there's something's happening there. It's not the same as Matt, where he's getting memories implanted in his head. It's the actual personality or the being who is Luz Theron is kind of in Rand's head. So I don't know what kind of, if that's just madness, is that some kind of shenanigans with the One Power? Is there some kind of, I don't know what's going on, but it's weird, and it's just another thing that Rand has to deal with. And if all of that wasn't enough, Rand still has to deal with Avienda, Elaine, and Min, all three of which are after his booty. For some reason, I'm kind of shipping Min and Rand at the moment, seeing the two of them interact. I'm shipping them, but yeah, So he's got to deal with all of that on top of all the crap I've just mentioned. I honestly feel really bad for Rand, and I do not envy him his life, his situation, his station, nothing. He probably is the most powerful and influential man in the world at the moment, but I don't think anyone would want to be him. So yeah. But yeah, just overall, if I just look at the overall book, things are feeling a lot more expansive. It's becoming a bit harder to keep track of everything. I do like the politics and the world building, but I'm wondering if I should be keeping notes at this point. We'll see. It should be fine. The magic did take a bit of a back seat this time around. We didn't learn much that was new or anything, but I don't mind that. I feel like we're getting so much story information now that the world building and the magic kind of has to take a bit of a back seat, like it did these last 2 books, just so that we can, I don't know, set a foundation for where we're at before moving on, because there's obviously more things we need to learn. It's just, I'm kind of glad that we're taking the time here, because I do feel like I'm gonna fall behind in my comprehension if I don't pay close attention. And also, I just want to mention, also as a very nice capstone, I guess, to this review of this specific book, I really liked the ending where the Aes Sedai knelt. It was really awesome. It's like this awesome moment after the battle. All the Aes Sedai that came to help Rand knelt, and they swore fealty to him. It was this awesome yet really chilling moment. I don't know, it had this vibe that spoke of real fundamental change in the world, which I really liked. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and I'm looking forward to it. And of course there was the final battle. There's not much to say on it. It was just the Shido and the bad Aes Sedai fighting against Rand's people, so nothing fancy there. I do like that the White Tower Aes Sedai kind of did that, because it means they're the bad guys and we get to kill them so that we can go and attack Elida, because I really don't like her. But other than that, yeah, not much to say on the final battle. There weren't many stakes on that specific battle, just obviously rescuing Rand. But overall, no, I was really happy with it. And like I said, that final moment at the end where they all knelt to him, man, that was really chilling. I really liked that one. Anyway, so that has been this video for today. I know it's probably extremely long already. Looking at my recording, it's probably going to be about 30 minutes to 40 minutes long. But it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed reading the books and enjoyed making the review. But yeah, that's been it from me for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Raven, and I will see you all next time. Take care, everybody.